My hat! All right, so now we're going to start assembling the rest. I'm just going to put this filter on for now, and the only reason why I'm putting it on is so that no debris or any objects fall into the carburetor, but I actually have the other filter. So we're going to start assembling the front end, installing the front end. So here it is, and we are ready to go. So let me go ahead and should have grabbed the P2. Here we go. That one's not attached yet because the batteries, have not gotten the batteries yet. Alright, so this arm, this servo arm, will have to attach to this arm right here. So when you are installing this one, see those marks? That's where your steering bell crank goes. But this shaft, you need to make sure you place it in here. So you're just going to bring it close. You can see there. And then you're going to have to turn it to line it up. And then once it lines up, it'll just slide in. So see, it's just in there. And then just drop it in this way. And that is all you do. And then just hold on to it. Grab the 4 screws that go in here. And you're just going to pick up your 4 countersunk screws, sorry. And I just grabbed them. I moved everything. And you just, oh, what happened there? That's from the steering. Oh, that didn't work. How did it? Here we go. I'm really curious as to, for those of you that have a Tmaxx, what engine are you running in the Tmaxx? Are you running the smaller engine? Are you running the 3.3 engine? Did you replace the engine? I know some people replace it, although the 3.3 is a good engine, but maybe you wanted something else, which is a possibility. Just put it in the comments. The other thing too, for those of you that are watching this but have not gotten into nitro and you're planning on getting into nitro, there's a few little things that you have to follow when it comes to the engine, other than break-in period and all that good stuff, which I will be talking about once I get this truck up and running, is make sure after you run it, you deplete all the fuel in the tank. You do not want any fuel left in the tank or the lines. The fuel is actually very good at absorbing moisture from the environment. So you can damage your carburetor, you can damage your sleeve, your piston. I mean, if you let it just sit there and had fuel, say for a year, you could end up with a seized engine, which means that your engine won't turn. And I mean, that's worst case. But keep that in mind. The other thing too is many fuels have a dye. So if you have purchased Traxxas fuel, for example, if you've ever seen Traxxas fuel, generally has a blue dye. Some fuels have a different dye, a red dye. For some brands, the dye represents the percentage, so 20%, whatever percent of nitro it is. But that dye will dye your plastic in your fuel tank. So then your fuel tank will turn blue or whatever color. You do not want that to happen. So always make sure that if you don't use all the fuel in there, you just use your fuel bottle to just suck back out the fuel and then try to get all the rest of the fuel out somehow. I don't know, a dropper. You can use a dropper. Or just run it with the last bit of fuel until the engine dies. The other thing too, when you're turning off your engine, make sure, and sometimes if the tune pipe is not hot, if it's hot, don't touch it. But if it's not that hot, sometimes you can just stick your finger on the tune pipe and the engine will stall. The only problem is then you're going to end up with a bunch of fumes and liquid inside of your tune pipe. So it's better that you just stall the engine by depleting the fuel supply. That's really the best way to go. All right, so here we go. Now we have to install, so if you remember, bell crank is over here, so there's a screw that goes in there, a screw that goes in here, which in the camera is a little difficult to see, but then there's the 4 screws over here. So we have to go ahead and grab those screws, and then screws over here on this side. Oh, I never installed the bumper, I just realized. All right, so we don't want to mix these up. Now, one of the things, if you forget bell crank, just remember, bell crank is going to be a fine thread screws on, I wish I had placed this on so I could show you. So that being said, just grab screws that are fine thread and go ahead and install them in there. But first, let me go ahead and grab, let's see, 2 different screws for the bell crank because I actually want hex screws for their, I just find them easier to work with, especially in those places. But, you know, it's just preference, I could be wrong. All right, so it's a 2mm driver. And let's see, wires are in the way. There it is. Can't really see, to be honest. I want this to be in the camera. I think I got it. Feels like I got it. The wires are out of the way, so I don't have to worry about pinching them. So that's one of the things. When you're installing this, make sure that the wires are out of the way. You do not want to pinch the wires accidentally as you're screwing in the bell crank. That is it. Do not over tighten. That's the other thing too. Then you start stripping. Well, you can strip screws, you can strip components. Either way, not fun. So be very, very careful. This screw over here would have been easier if I had not installed the receiver box first, because it's actually just rubbing enough to where it's providing a little too much friction. But again, in here, just make sure you're not pinching the wires. There we go, we're almost there, and it's perfect. All right. Here we go. So now I'm going to grab the other 4 screws, and these are the countersunks that go up here, and I am back to my P2 driver. And I will be installing the stock shocks for now. The main thing is just to get it running. I know I said some of them aren't good shocks to work with, and that is true, but I just want to run this in a straight line. I'm not going to be jumping it. And then later on, I'll probably see about getting the GTR shocks, because the GTRs are the better option. As I said, there is a GTR version for the Tmaxx. I would not get them because the other GTRs, like the GTRs that you would get for the Slash, they're a bigger bore. So they have more oil in there. They simply have more dampening capacity. They're just better dampeners. The shaft is also thicker, so the likelihood of you bending one is lower. So it is more expensive. The full set of GTR shocks for these, I mean, they do call them GTR. At least that's what hobby shop I was in called them. They run about $100. So the other option is more expensive. You're looking at about $50 more maybe, but they are far superior. All right, at this point, now I'm ready to install the rear part. The rear part is the same installation, really. It's 4 screws on the bottom, 4 screws on the top. There's no steering, so you don't have to worry about steering, but you still have to make sure that this is engaged. And let's place it here, and there we go. So you may just have to twist a little, and that's fine, that's normal. All right, here we go. So these are the ones that go there. One of the differences too between the Classic and the 3.3, this is the current models, the modern ones. Other than the engine, you actually get different tires with them as well. So with the Classic, you get the chevron style tires. Right? They have the little chevrons on there. Versus the other ones, you get a different altering or sort of a mud terrain tires. Now the stock tires, that should not be what makes or breaks the deal. The stock tires are just good tires to get you going. Later on, you're probably going to wear those out, and you're going to start looking for tires. At that point, that's when you start getting into maybe some Proline Badlands or Proline Trenchers, something along those lines. That would be the way to go at some point. You may also consider different foams. It just depends on where you're running, really. Loose dirt, you probably want some really soft foams. All right. Good news and bad news. The good news is I'm almost finished. The bad news is I need to remove the motor. In order to install the screws on top, motor's got to come out. So let's undo the motor. Okay, well, I was about to say at least it's only 4 screws. Yeah, but then you have the links as well. All right, I just got excited after doing the transmission. So that's one of those things. Just remember, whatever you take off first, you install last. Whatever you take off last, you install first. So I ended up removing the motor before removing this rear end. So I should have done that. All right. This wire took the screw. There it is. Oh, come on. All right, here we go. Oh, it's too bad. See, the mesh was perfect. Oh well, here we go. Let's get started. Now, when you're installing this, if you have the electric starter, this little motor, keep in mind that there's magnets in the motor, so do not be surprised if your driver wants to stick to the motor. So don't get the screw too close to it. Now another thing, make sure you do not pinch the fuel line. That's something that is important. Now, fuel line usually, see this one has smaller pieces. That's the fuel line that was installed, and I'm curious because keep in mind I did not install the fuel line. Originally, I did not cut it, but Traxxas usually uses longer fuel line for the fuel intake. So I'm not sure how this will work. I may have to replace the a fuel line with longer tubing, which is fine. I have tubing. That is not an issue. This is some of the problem that you're going to run. So that came off, that's fine. Carburetor. Alright, after this one more on the top, and then I can mount the engine again. And remember, you're using a Phillips number 2. That's the size that you want to use for these. If you use a Phillips number 1, you're probably going to end up stripping the heads, these particular screws. So far, out of everything that I've disassembled and reassembled, the only thing that I have needed a Phillips P1 is the differentials. Well, did one differential. And these screws here on the bottom part of the chassis. So other than that, you will be using a P2 for pretty much everything. All right, let's get this arm in the correct position. See if I can do it without using the pliers. Yep, yes I can. All right. We're going to do the same as we did last time to set the mesh on this motor. I'm actually just getting them close by hand. Well, except for here, my fingers don't fit, so I will have to use the driver. But remember not to tighten them fully, because you will have to move the engine, wiggle it a little just to get the mesh right. There's a variety of ways you can set the mesh. For example, if you're not very good at, or you can't really see from up top, you can usually take a look down here and just look at your gears, see how they're sitting. They're meshing, but that's actually really, really close. Actually, that is it. Huh. Lucky me. All right, so now I'm holding it tight against the chassis. I'm going to drive one slightly, drive the other one slightly. I'm going to do it to the other one as well. In reality, you just want to do 2, and on opposite sides, I did 3. Looks good, feels good, sounds good. All right, let's hold the motor in the chassis. Now I'm going to go ahead and tighten 1. Do it again. Still feels good, looks good. I'm looking in there. Tighten another one. And we're still good. All right, there we go. So now I can tighten all of them. Perfect. All right, so now the front end and the rear are there. All I have to do is now connect the steering. And this box will be getting new springs, but once I install the batteries. Right now, I'm not going to install the batteries, so I'm still waiting on the receiver. All right, here we go. So the easiest thing, turn it this way so that you can see where the steering is. And one of the things that I can tell right off the bat is this horn is in the wrong position because it's probably supposed to aim this way. And of course, I don't remember from taking this apart. I was paid more attention to how old the electronics, the stock electronics were than how the electronics were actually installed. But here we go. Oops, other way. And this isn't fun. Should have installed this first. So there you go. So the only thing I'm going to do in this case, I should have installed the steering arm first, but I did not, which was a mistake. But it is all right. So I'm just going to remove these two screws right here, these two, and then this is plastic. This is flexible enough. I'm just going to move the steering that way. Actually, I don't have to. Why am I taking these screws out? Right, those of you watching, you need to give me pointers as I'm doing this so that I don't make mistakes. I'm kidding. I'm recording these before you watch them. But here we go. I just realized I can go in through here. And I'm trying not to stick my head under the camera. So I'm trying to look through awkward angles. It's easier if you're looking straight down or off from this side. But there it is. Perfect. I'm just going to pull on it and make sure nothing flies. All right, we are good. And I'll straighten this out. Yes, it appears that this horn is supposed to be pointing forward. All right. I'll do the rest of the adjustments once I get the transmitter. For now, I'm just going to install it and call it good. And now we just need the tires. That's the only thing. Just to reassemble this, and then obviously after that, once I get the transmitter, because I am going with a stock Traxxas transmitter, everything will be good to go. Almost forgot about the tune pipe. Let me do that before the tires. And this vibrates a lot, so you want to make sure you secure the tune pipe. And one of the reasons why is you can break it. This is a plastic tune pipe. Even if it were a metal tune pipe, after rattling for who knows how long, hitting the chassis, you will break it. Great, let's see. All right, this nut needs to come off. And I should probably install the shocks first. Let me just see how deep these go. No, I can install the wheels. I'll install the wheels. So just remember that this uses an 8mm driver. You want to make sure you use the correct driver. There is one. And these, I do not see a mark for front and rear. And the arms are actually the same, the front and the rear arms. Well, most of the things are. Even the carriers are the same, front and rear. One of the things that you will notice is you can take the front and use it in the back. Well, all the components, the arms, bearings, carriers. The rear just has a fixed arm. So it's just fixed here versus this connects to the bell crank. That's really the only difference. Right. This is strange. What is this here? All right. There we go. All right, we are almost finished. Oh, before I do this, let me just do the front one. I keep forgetting to install the rear bumper. So these tires here, these are the type that you get on the Classic, which is Traxxas part number 1075. Those are these here. Now, right now, what I want to do is install the rear bumper because I keep forgetting. And, yeah, guess what? I'm gonna have to remove the rear tires. Good thing I didn't tighten this one all the way, but I did the other one. Alright, let's see. The screws right here. And it's not a big deal, it's only 4 screws. This is rear bumpers. I'm not going to say it's the easy part. There's some things that are more challenging, some things that are less challenging. I guess removing and installing a wheel is a lot easier than the bumper because it's only just 1 nut versus 4 screws. And if you're removing a wheel, you're just removing the wheel. Versus if you're removing the rear bumper, you have to remove the wheel. So from that perspective, you have to do more work. It's more challenging. There you go. Now this I'm probably going to end up just tie strapping here. There's actually a little plastic base that where this clicks on and then it screws onto here, but it didn't come with it. Well, I did not get it. I'm sure it came with it new. Just when I got it, it was not there. And that's what I mean by that. This is actually looking pretty good. There's always a satisfaction when you take something apart, or if you're building a kit because it's in pieces, and you're really close to assembling it, or you see it finally take shape. Although, I will be honest, sometimes the closer to finishing you get, the longer it feels that it's taking. Why? No clue. Probably because in your mind, you're thinking of the entire process, everything that you have done. So because you're processing a lot more information in, say, the same amount of time, it seems that it's taking longer, or it just seems as if it were forever, because you're processing that much more information. That is my theory. I'm sticking to it. I guess it's my idea. It's not really a theory. It hasn't been proven yet. Maybe it has. I don't know. If somebody knows about it, let me know. Put a link to an article. I don't mind reading. Or you can just sum up the article for us. Here we go. So that's it. We just have to do the shocks. Now the better shocks I am going to, because there were 5 that worked, 4 of those I'm going to install in the front because I want the better shocks in the front. And those were, I can actually tell them apart really fast. Oh, here we go. All right. Well, guess I only needed 4. There we go. All right, so these are the screws that go at the bottom, and these are the screws that go on the top. I just grabbed a few. All right. So just going to grab one, lift, and I'm going to install this on the upper hole. You can install in the center one. It just depends on driving conditions, what your goal is. Are you just racing ovals? Are you jumping? If you're jumping, you want the most droop as possible. And you want the shocks to be as upright as possible if you're doing a lot of high jumps. Here we go. These screws here, Traxxas does make these in the hex pattern, the hex bolt. Get the hexes. If you're going to keep this type of shock, if you're planning on getting the GTRs, just use hex bolt. They come with the screws. So just use the hex screws they come with. But here we go. Some of you that are watching this assembly, you probably already replaced the shocks on your Tmaxx. Just go ahead and let us know in the comments. Which ones did you use? What spring rates are you using? So which spring color? Are you using the red ones? Just let them know. Maybe you changed it up. Are you running the same setup in the rear as the front? I mean, for off-road, it depends. If it's really, really loose dirt, are you running a lower weight oil in the front and then a thicker oil in the rear? Right, that's a possibility. That actually works pretty good if you go, you know, -5, -10 in the front. Well, -5 in the front versus the rear for off-road. It works pretty well. Well, definitely need the second ones. All right, so let's drop this in. And however you set up this one, you want to set up the other one just so that the geometry is the same for both of them. And I'm going to tell you right now, Mr. Stubby is your friend when it comes to this one over here. And I actually want to use a number 1. That's a number 2. Almost made a mistake there. Another mistake? Man, I've already watched 20 mistakes. Yeah, all right, whatever. Here we go. All right. See, if I were Genie from Aladdin, I could probably just snap my fingers. I'm kidding. If I were Genie from Aladdin, I wouldn't exist. I guess I would in cartoon form. Media files. All right, there goes that little box. I should probably just put a screw through it and hold it down. All right, here we go. So we want to go. Where did I go over here? There, hold on. I forgot where I placed it. Ah, now I know. Seem to, there it is. All right, let's do this one. Since we are dealing with this side, might as well see how many screws I can drop. Sure, somebody's counting. Not I said the fly. I always wondered about that expression, not I said the fly. Was the fly talking to a spider and then the spider said, "Who's next?" That would make sense. But here we go. So the shocks, even though you have 8 shocks, it's really not that bad. It's just a little more shocks, but if you think about it, if you get the GTRs, it probably translates to more air. So you can probably jump higher. Let's see if I can use the regular one instead of the stubby one. It's just faster with the long one. Maybe, maybe not. Let's use the stubby. Let's get this box out of the way. Nope. Dropping screws. All right. Place it there. Let's see. Alright, we're almost finished with this one. These ones are the ones that are a pain, and I'm looking at the rear and I may not be able to install the rear because of the motor. Well, here's a cheat. So they have to install here, and the motor's in the way. Just remove the rear shock tower. So if you remove the rear shock tower, install the shocks, and then just drop it in. Alright, just to make sure not to mix these. And you're really not going to mix them because these are coarse thread. The ones that hold the shocks at the bottom, even though they look similar, they're not. They're shorter, and they are fine thread. Let's see where. I have to go through here. Nope, that doesn't appear. All right, there we go. So one more. There. All right, shock tower is removed. So now I'm just going to install them there and here. Might as well just do all four. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. And let's see, doesn't matter which ones. There are other monster trucks that are also popular. A friend of mine has the Savage. Actually, I know 2 people with Savages, but Savage is pretty nice. It has a different frame. So instead of having frame, just a sheet of metal tub, say, it has sort of trusses in there. I really do like the way the frame looks, and that's what I like about the truck. There are certain RCs that, regardless, they may perform beautifully, they may not perform at all, but just the design and engineering is so beautiful that you like the vehicle no matter what. I don't know if you can think of other vehicles that are like that. I don't want to say they are form over function, but maybe drop it down in the comments. Mention a few kits that you have seen. Speaking about kits and things that just look amazing, that's one of the things that I do like about certain brands. So for example, Tamiya, they always have these beautiful scale looking RCs. Traxxas has amazing, some of you already know I have the Bronco, and I actually do not drive it with a Bronco body. That body is just way too nice. It's a beautiful looking body. But also the Vortex, the line of Vortex, those things are amazing. So if you've seen my unboxing of the Ford GT and Mustang GT, both of them, they are just such beautiful, beautiful scale cars. I'm hoping more people get into Vortex just so I can race it. Which is a challenge because you only need 3 people and they'll open a class. I'm not sure what the rules are in your different areas, but drop them. How many people, in the comments, and just drop some comments. Your local track, how many people do you need to have a race class? Is it 3? Is it 4? I mean, 2 doesn't make sense. There's no real... It just doesn't work. You need at least 3, I think, to have a good heat. But I could be wrong. Do you think 3 is too little and you should have more than 3? If you do, let us know in the comment. What do you think is a good number? You know, they do say 3 is the loneliest number. Is it? Maybe it should be 4. The thing is, there's never a guarantee on how many people will be going head-to-head. Even if you have 4, it could be that the first 3 are head-to-head and the last one's way behind. Or the first one is way out front and it's really the last three that are really having the most exciting race. All right. There we go. All right, let's grab these screws. So we have the 4. I mean, I've seen races where 1 and 2 is really exciting. Usually it doesn't work that way. It's 1 and 2 is exciting for a while, and then one of the 2 crashes, and that's it. It's over. Usually the most exciting part of a race is somewhere in the middle of the pack. That's generally where the excitement is. I'm having trouble lining this one up. Mainly because I'm compressing the arm, and in compressing the arm I have to compress the dampener so it applies pressure, so it wants to push the screw toward the outside, so it wasn't letting me line it up. But I got it, so here we go. Alright, let's do the other one. And for these I'm going into the inner one. So there's 2 parts here on the arm, an inner and an outer. I chose the outer, which is why I have to compress the arm so that this bar, this tie rod, will allow me, here I'll show you. See, I need to compress it so that it actually lets me have access to those holes. Which means that I have to compress the dampener as well. I'm just going to set this there. Nope, missed. All right. So after this one, just 2 more, and that is it. And even though I'm not replacing the dampeners, this truck is a lot better than it was when I got it, simply because I was able to take the transmission apart, clean some of that gunk out, re-lubricate it with grease. I used just grease. And now that shifting fork actually works. It moves in and out, whereas before it was just stuck. There we go. Is that it? Did I get it? No. See, I don't want to stick my head under the camera. There it is. There we go. And let's line this other one up. And that is it. Now I did replace 2 screws from the steering, and they're right here, so I guess I could use these for the box since I already have them. Yeah, I'll use these for the box. So I'll just set them there lightly. There's one. There's that part for the wire, so it's not going to be pinching it. And I'm just going to set them there for now. And as soon as I get the receiver, I'll put some batteries in, fuel, and we'll see how this thing runs. But that is it. It's assembled. 3 fresh new servos. Transmission's been worked on. Air filter, that's what was on it. I do have the other one, which is larger. That's the one that generally comes in the 3.3, which I will be replacing. And that is it. So now it's just a matter of picking up the receiver, putting batteries, fuel in there, and see if this thing fires up. Thank you so much for watching.